First of all, thank you so much for meeting with us,
Yeah,
using your time, helping us out. Hopefully we can help each other even.
Yeah, definitely.
So starting off some questions about you and some more open-ended questions about the organization. So could you please introduce yourself, your position, and responsibilities here at UW Sustainability?
Sure. So my name is Cassie Lubenow. I'm the sustainability coordinator for UW Bothell. I'm in the facilities department, and my role very generally is to help promote and advance sustainability throughout the organization, throughout the UW Bothell as an organization. In doing that in every different kind of way possible. So my job actually looks, I have a really big variety of things that I do in my job. Right. So because I'm in facilities, I really I focus on the operations and the things that we do here. So the way that we maintain our buildings, the way that we build but you know, the way that we operate our buildings, the way that we clean our buildings, the way that we manage the landscaping and that kind of stuff. My role is to really look at all of that stuff and figure out how we can do it better, how we can do it in a more environmentally friendly way. In a lot of cases, in most cases when it comes to the operations at the campus, there's usually there's a whole other team that's actually in charge of carrying out those actions. So if I was going to be doing a sustainability initiative that has to do with how we operate our buildings or how we clean our buildings, really my role is to kind of identify those opportunities, but then the bulk of the work is to work with those departments and figure out what is it that you guys are doing, how can we do, can we do this better within your constraints. So it's a lot of kind of this intermediary role.
Kind of like management a little bit?
Kind of, but it's funny because you don't actually directly manage those people, so it's a little bit more like getting people to, it's more of a coordinating role than a management role.
Coordinating.
And it's a lot of kind of working within various departments to try to get them to change the way they do things for this kind of common goal. So it's a really unique set of kind of challenges and type of work that we work on in that way. So that's a big part of my job. But in a lot of that work is dependent largely on the campus culture and the campus community and what the community is asking for. So we all of our operations on this campus are primarily directed at what we feel like the customers. We talk about the people on this campus as our customers, and we're serving them. And so we say, what do the customers want?
Right.
So if the campus community is demanding, we need even more environmentally friendly this, that, and this, our facilities team will respond to that. So for that reason, part of my job is to really help promote the culture of sustainability throughout the campus community. So I spend a lot of time doing that, doing student outreach, student engagement, going to classes, teaching them about what we do, teaching them about what we could do, and how I need them to kind of meet me halfway. And then in some cases, it's also working with the campus community to help them understand how sustainability on this campus really depends on them. Because we need people to sort their garbage the right way, and we need people to, turn their lights off if they don't have an occupancy sensor, and we need them to be okay with slightly cooler temperatures if it means that we're emitting less greenhouse gas emissions. Right. So things like that. So it's an interesting position that really kind of covers a lot of different types of functions, and it's really it's intermediary in a lot of ways. It's kind of like filling in those gaps. If you don't have someone that's trying to line all those pieces up together, they won't usually come together. Right. So it's kind of like I'm like a detective that figures out, who needs to ask for what to make this group of people do something for an environmental goal. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty admirable. Let's see here. What kind of I kind of covered that. So what kind of activities does the UWBS enact to enact? What do they do to enact the priorities that you were just listing?
The UWBS Sustainability Group.
Yeah. So
the group is really just me and my assistant. So what we do. You mean like in terms of driving the culture, or in terms of
like, yeah, exactly, like driving the culture, like what like do you like have like events, so to speak, or like how do you communicate with the students?
So I've tried a few different ways. Like I said, I've been here for a little under a year and a half. And I'm still, I think, trying to figure out the best way to communicate and to engage people. But some of the things I've tried, events for sure. I coordinate Earth Week, which is like a week-long celebration, like around Earth Day, where we just try to get, but when we're doing that, we primarily try to get various student groups to throw events, because me throwing an event is really only going to go so far,
right.
Because I don't have a group of students that will definitely show up and that type of thing. So I work with other departments and say like, hey, would you consider throwing an event during Earth Week? Here's how I can help you. Here's how we can cross promote it. So that's kind of like a big event push. And then as there's other events throughout the year, I will do those, but I generally try to find like a campus partner. If I throw one just myself, especially because I'm in facilities, one, I have kind of a limited ability to throw events, because I'm not allowed to spend money on certain events related things, because we have, that's just some of the bureaucracy and kind of stuff that, some of the nuances of the position. But I'll find a campus partner that, like the Student Sustainability Club, and then I'll find another good opportunity. So I'll kind of make those connections again, and then help promote it, help provide whatever guidance I can.
Okay.
Another big piece is we participate in community-based learning and research, that program as a community partner. So every quarter we have students, we'll have anywhere from 5 to 10 students, and we have them do, the last few quarters we've had them doing education, so we have them research a topic on sustainability. We're trying to facilitate a little bit of a peer-to-peer type education program, so we have them learn a topic, a sustainability related topic. We try to have it be something on campus, but if they're really passionate about something different, we're pretty flexible. And then we have them research it, and then they have to create some sort of educational output. So in the past we've been very broad with that. It can be video, it can be a workshop that they hold, they can present to a class. This quarter, we're having them focus more on direct outreach, so like tabling. So they're gonna go learn about a topic, and then they're gonna have a table on campus, and they're gonna come up with a little activity, like a waste game, or like harvesting in the garden, or something like that. So again, kind of that peer-to-peer connection, because that is a pretty powerful way of getting the word out to people. We also do social media, newsletters, that kind of thing. And then I pretty regularly get asked to speak in classes about something that we're doing. So I'll go talk to classes, and that's usually like a teacher will reach out to me because it relates to their class or something like that.
How often would you say that you do those presentations in classrooms?
It ranges. At times I'll have I'll go some quarters with none, and then I'll have some quarters where I'll get 8 requests in the quarter. So it kind of depends what's going on. There's more around Earth Week, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. So we talked about the audiences of your organization a lot. So you kind of you reach out to the students and you coordinate with them, and then they in their own population kind of make it happen, so to speak, with your oversight. That's
what we're trying to do, because it does just work better. Because I do with my own personal power, I go out and I talk to as many people as I can. Right. A lot of times it's in situations like this where there's it works with the project, people want to know more. Other times it's just because I involve myself in a lot of different things, and I'll just go and let people know what's going on.
Making a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah, that's still only so many, there's tons of people that I would just never encounter, especially because we're all kind of in our own worlds, so I circle around the environmental studies faculty a lot because it's so clearly related. And it really can be related to lots of different groups, but it's like this self-selecting thing. So the peer-to-peer model, it has proven at other institutions to be very effective at kind of building that culture.
Kind of like a butterfly effect.
Yeah, totally. And getting it outside of the kind of the usual suspect circle. Yeah.
Awesome. What kind of, we've been talking about obstacles a little bit, if you want to define those a little bit better. So what kind of obstacles do you face in communicating between your organization and these audiences?
So I would say the primary, and it's so like fundamental that it's weird to even explain it as the challenge, but the challenge is like how to best communicate to people, because like I've shared, I've got a number of channels that I try to use, and I feel like I'm doing almost the best I can. I mean, we could all be a little better, but like, you know, I really do make an effort. I've got listservs, we do events, you know, I have run a couple of different committees, and I invite everyone I know, I reach out to faculty I know, so I feel like I have this very like piecemeal way of getting the word out. We have an all-staff email listserv that I'll send things out to, but I still get like 98% of people on this campus, if you were like, hey, did you know we did that or this, or did you know that the sustainability office exists? They would all say, no, we don't, and why didn't anybody tell me that, you know? So you get that a lot.
We tried.
Yeah, exactly. So that's like the conundrum that I'm constantly in, is that like, I'm trying as hard as I can. We just had a garden committee meeting today with new students, because we got a bunch at the Welcome Week Student Resource Fair, so we got to connect with a lot of students that way. That's a really good, you know, university sponsored event where you can do that. And they were all like, same question, how are you getting the word out about this? I'm interested in this stuff and I never knew about this. And it's like, I tried, you know? So I'm kind of always in that like conundrum. So I think it's a matter of like figuring out the best channels, but also I think that like how to make people actually interested in it. Because I think, you know, we put posters up everywhere when there's an event. But we're all so inundated with so much information. We all follow so many different social.
Can only do so much.
Yeah, and same thing with the social media posts. You know, like if unless you're really sophisticated with it, which we're not really. Scroll. Totally, like we all do it. We have so much, so it's kind of like with information overload that we're all kind of subject to. Like, how do you make your message kind of
stand out?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so actually, it's great that you mentioned that you played such a role in the buildings and their systems, because we are actually going to ask about kind of each one of those briefly. So can you tell us about the successes and issues of each one of these projects? So let's start with the solar panels on the parking garage.
Sure. So the solar panels, and since I haven't been here a year and a half, a lot of the really awesome features that we have are a little bit before my time, but I can share what I know. The solar panels were put on with probably, I don't know if it was grant money. Funding is always the primary obstacle with getting solar or other renewable energy. So we're fortunate because our Associate Vice Chancellor of Facilities is just really passionate about renewable energy. So he's the decision maker. With any of these, like you'll see this probably as a pattern, it's like there's one decision maker who in each system who decides what are we going to do, like, are we going to put up solar or not? Or someone who kind of has to, you know, it's kind of in their court. And so he once he found money for it, he was just like, I think solar is cool, I think it's important, we're going to put it up. So it was a pretty like, you know, it's kind of not exactly like a democratic process. I mean, there's lots of stakeholders always, but it was just like a key decision maker wanted to do it, so he's like, let's go ahead and do it.
How about that, the campus garden?
That is not nearly as straightforward. The campus garden is really unique because, and so when I say the garden, I'm talking about not the food forest area that's in the middle of campus, but the ones that are between the sports field and the north parking garage. That was a push by a committee of students, faculty, and staff, and it was just a voluntary committee, and they came together 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago now, and they said, we think a campus garden is really important, we would like to do this. And they spent, so they went to the administration and were like, we'd like to put garden beds in, you know. And there was a ton of pushback, a lot of fear about liability, about practicality, all of these things. That just kind of comes with the territory of being in a university setting. And so they spent 3 years writing a massive proposal. The proposal, so there's bylaws with the garden, there's like all sorts of agreements and stuff like that, and that was a direct response to what the administration, so basically the administration was like, no, you can't do it because of this, and this, and so the garden said, okay, we'll do this, and this. They presented to a lot of different committees, the sustainability committee, the space planning committee, and it was kind of like once they continued to like, you know, be like, okay, we can handle that, we can handle that, we can handle that. they finally got it approved.
Yeah.
And that was a year and a half ago. And then even after that, it's still, so it was approved. They were like, okay, you can have a garden. But the problem is that this is a voluntary committee in
A while back.
well, yeah, but we still had the people involved in the committee, but the problem was that, so when the garden was approved, we still didn't have a budget, we didn't have it didn't have a home within the university, basically.
Okay.
So we were like, well, we'd like to have a web page, can we put it on the university web page? But the way the university web pages work is you have to be a part of a department, and then there's a whole chain of command to get a web page. Same thing with a budget. You cannot spend money in the university without a certain type of budget that's set up, and it has to have an owner and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So we're actually kind of still in the process of working through that, because they said that we were approved, but once we started trying to take actions, it was wait, you can't do that because you don't have a budget, or you don't have approval to do that, and that kind of thing. So it's been really interesting because a lot of the conversations that came up with the garden were well, are there students involved? It sounds like it's a student club. Why don't you go to the Work Sync and the student club world? And we were well, because there's also staff and faculty that are involved, and you kind of need staff and faculty involved because we use just social technology,
Right.
social media kind of technology. Another aspect where technology in general is very relevant to sustainability work is how we monitor and track the performance of our buildings
Right.
or other things. So all of our systems, our electricity, our natural gas, our water, that's all metered. It's metered to pay your bills and all that kind of stuff, but it's also hooked up. It's also, we have a software called Lucid that takes that information and displays it on our dashboards that you may have seen in some buildings. We've got 4 of them. There's one in UW1. Yeah, so those are touch screens, and if you play around on them, you can pull up real-time data for electricity, natural gas, and water in every single building.
Wow.
And you can compare 2 buildings to each other. You compare different time spans from each other. So that, and we actually don't utilize that capacity. We don't use our ability to do that to the extent that I think we could. Because it's really cool information to have, you know, and we,
definitely.
Our maintenance people look at that information to make sure that buildings are running efficiently. So that's another piece.
And then you're hitting
goals.
benchmarks and
Exactly. You're hitting benchmarks. And also kind of the more immediate use is it will signal when something's wrong. So if all of a sudden the electricity or natural gas is through the roof, it probably means there's a piece of equipment malfunctioning and wasting a ton of energy,
So you have that information publicly available, but then you also have it in your private private domains.
Yep. And we actually have there's a few different levels of systems that track that information, and so one of them, our building automation system, it adjusts the settings of the buildings automatically based on what's happening. So it uses information from the outside environment to say we only need to raise the temperature this much because we can get cool air from this, or it knows once this machine dips up to this level, we know to drop this. So you've got, it's kind of
amazing.
Commercial spaces like this, the buildings are all talking to each other to some extent, which is super cool.
That is very, very cool.
Yeah, and a lot of that is
that's
it's
so
awesome.
interesting.
A lot of that is even a little over my head because it can get quite technical. So
same.
our maintenance team, we have a woman that is, her whole job is to program and monitor the buildings really.
And have all these sensors working with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Super cool.
Alright, let's see here. Alright, so we're actually we should back up and talk about some of these systems again. So for recycling, I know we have a lot of good programs out there. The recycling is actually one of the things that we might be focusing on.
Cool.
So in terms of sorting and social understanding and how are we doing with the electronics situation? Like, are those used at all? Like those like towers where you put in your batteries and whatnot?
Not that much.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, we were like, maybe because there's like a space for floppy disks and stuff in there still, and we're like, okay, these are outdated, maybe people don't use floppy disks. And we are upgrading them a little bit, so I think it's just they're more general categories of things.
Right.
But we talked at UW Seattle, and we looked at other institutions to see if anyone else was like, maybe we were missing something, and we're not. It's like, but it's batteries and light bulbs, and they don't have that much use, and same thing with even like our regular recycling. Like,
really?
I mean, they do, but not
as much as,
not nearly as much as they should. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head right now, but the trickiest thing with waste for us is that we can put the bins out and we can service those, those different waste streams.
But it's up to the students or the people.
The people have to put them in the right spot, and the people have to bring batteries from their home and bring them, or from their classroom, wherever, and put them in there. And I think we all know, like, that feeling of like, ooh. And even when you know what you should do with it, you're just like, am I really going to carry this around with me all day?
Yeah.
Like, it's horrible. Like, I like to use myself as a case study when I feel myself being like, I don't feel like putting in the effort, and I obviously care deeply, It's like, how is anyone else going to care? Or how, how do we get people to be motivated to like go that extra step.
Like literal step.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we provide a lot of, we could certainly do better. There's some areas where we, like we could provide more of those e-media bins. We could provide composting at every single waste station, which we don't. But like the facilities decision makers are also hesitant to add more compost bins, for example, because our existing compost bins aren't even full, so that's definitely the challenge, is like we can go halfway, but you need people to meet us the other half. And no one's sure exactly what the best solution is for that, because some people say like, oh, no one knows what to put in the recycling, no one knows what to put in the e-media bins, so we're like, okay, we'll put signs up. So we have signs up, and they're pretty like specific, they're
and
pretty
people are
good.
like, oh, I have to read all that?
Totally. And nobody does that, so it's like, okay, then what is it? And sometimes people look at it, see it, and they still just like put it in the wrong, you just do it, so there's a gap there for sure.
Yeah, a lot of it is just getting these people to care.
Yeah, part of it does, I think, kind of ultimately come down to caring a little bit. But you can make people care for like different. It's not like everyone has to care for the same reason.
For sure.
I'm always careful not to like be too much like everyone must care about the environment, because some people just are not going to feel the same way I do. So it's like, how can we motivate those people if they don't care?
Yeah, indeed. And there's one more system here. So how exactly does I studied in the class that all these buildings recycle the rainwater. How do those systems work? Do they go into the plumbing for toilets and stuff too?
So unfortunately, only one building recycles rainwater.
Okay.
And they looked into doing it at a wider spread scale many years ago, and I don't know exactly what the reason was that they can't, but they couldn't for some reason. And sometimes there's weird, like, I know in some cases capturing rainwater, you're like legally not allowed to, because it's like a water rights issue, like that water should go into the stream, which could belong to someone down valley or whatever. I don't know if that's why we didn't do it, but it gets tricky sometimes like that. But the only building that collects rainwater for use in the building is CC3, which is the lead building at Cascadia, and it gets like funneled off from the roof down a gutter, and it actually gets stored underground in like a 10,000 gallon tank, and then it gets pumped up to a mechanical room where there's a smaller tank, and it does get used to flush toilets. So up there, it's basically goes to the same room that like our HVAC systems. The HVAC system for the Cascadia is over there, and then it just like goes into pipes that goes to the toilets and stuff.
That is really cool.
Yeah, and it's set up so that in the summer when we don't get a lot of rain, like we'll use it all and then we won't have any more. It's set up to just be able to automatically switch back onto the regular city water supply. So it's been an awesome system. So
I saw that some of the plumbing for Discovery Hall does it go out into the wetlands? Or is it all like?
It wouldn't be the plumbing, but
not plumbing,
the
but-
rainwater though does.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So really, all of the Discovery Hall has a cool feature where it like collects it from the roof and then it gets like diverted down and.
On a cool little fountain and then,
Yeah, and there's those little steps that go down. And
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about it yesterday because there's actually some sort of function of like the steps, and I forget what it is.
Yeah.
But it might be like some sort of filtration system or something. Yeah, and then it goes down, and then we have bioswales right before the wetlands, kind of between the arc and the wetlands. Like those areas are kind of dug out to collect and filter water, and then it
Okay.
ultimately goes to the wetlands. So that kind of spits out down there into one of the bioswales. And really, all of the rainwater that hits the campus, that one gets diverted directly into it, but all of the water does ultimately go to the wetlands,
Oh,
you know? So like anything that hits the street goes into the storm drain, and then the storm drain goes into the stream or to the wetlands
Okay.
there.
So it's all set up for that divergence.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So we're nearing the end here, and we just had a couple of rough like mobile app ideas because that
Yeah.
ultimately is where we're heading, and we're just gonna maybe run these by you.
Yeah, cool.
So one of them we had was eye sort. So there's a lot of camera sensors out there, or there's a lot of scanner software that you can throw on your phone that like you can scan certain objects and like it could give you information.
Oh, cool.
So a possible idea we had was let's say you have like a tray of like garbage or stuff that you don't know where it goes. So you take out your phone and then you take a picture of it and then it tells you where each object belongs.
Oh, cool,
in terms of,
yeah.
like-
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because especially if you have like complicated, this is another issue with waste, is if you have like, even like a recyclable cup is a good example. Like
Yeah.
the straw you can't recycle.
Yeah.
And sometimes the lid you may or may not be able to
Yeah.
recycle. So that type of stuff, like breaking it all down is
Exactly.
like too much information for people.
Exactly, and like even like Coke bottles or whatever,
Yeah.
like the cap isn't recyclable,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah, exactly.
the plastic is, but some people just don't know that.
Yeah.
And then one more we have is My Waste and I, or my Footprint and I, and it would be like a daily use app where the user like logs their garbage intake and intake their waste in general, and their showers and like how long they are, and like their
cool.
drives and how long they are, and then like at the end of the day or at the end of like the year, so to speak, with all that data collected, it would print out like a feasible number, like in like a carbon footprint number. Let's say.
Yeah.
And then like you could compare it with other people's and like the average and
Make it like a competition kind of.
yeah, sure, like gamify it.
Yeah, cool.
We feel like it would just connect people more to their their waste,
Totally.
And we're just about at the end here. Do you have any questions for us or any last minute topics to touch on that you'd like to get out to some people or anything?
I don't think so. I think I got like
Yeah.
my main challenges, which is really that engagement piece. Like how can we bring these topics to people in a way where they will care more or just be more engaged with it, so that we can kind of finish out the sustainable system.
Get out of their like own zones, like you were talking about, and like to get out there and like into the systems
and participate with it. Yeah, because we need people to participate with it for it to really work. So,
yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Cassie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what you guys come up with.
Yeah, and at the end, actually, I think either at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter, we'll be bringing some. We could be bringing some data to you, or maybe a prototype if you want to look at it.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Sweet.
Cool.